Hello out there in YouTube land. Okay, it is November 26th, 2022, approximately 8:21 at night here, right? So I'm on the vacation for a few days for Thanksgiving, and I really haven't I don't even feel like I really had relaxed or anything. Didn't want to leave the house today, so I'm blaming this totally on the bearded dragon, okay, that we have, right? It came out of brumation. Bearded dragons, for some reason, they don't call it hibernation, but for a couple months, this bearded dragon will sleep. It woke up. We have vegetables for it, but it needed mealworms. I called the local pet store that's like 30, 40 minutes up the road, unfortunately, now. Uh, Nobody was answering, so I didn't want to check the chance that they were closed. So I decided to go to Bristol where they have a Petco. And on the way, I stopped at a flea market, comic book shop, and a few things, and actually found some good stuff. I get home, catalog the stuff, and I find out that it's worth more than I thought it was going to be. But it was pretty cool. So before we get to that, I did a haul video. I was on Thanksgiving Wednesday. I don't know, but I've done a haul video, and then I did a live show last night on Cavern of Chaos where we had some great Conan talk with memories and our comics and magazines and books and novels and stuff, right? So check out last night's Cavern of Chaos. I think that's number 54, but it's clearly marked Conan, this barbarian, these comics, or something like that. But anyway, when I did that haul video the other day for the month of November, I actually left out some books. So I'm going to take this opportunity to show these before I go on to something else. Hey, what's up, John C? Okay. So, and if I showed these, before I don't think I did. Okay. It's all right, man. But I kind of cracked up about this one right here because these were all dollar books from way earlier in the month. And this one had stickers on it. And I kept peeling them off, and it was like $9, $7, $5, and I ended up finding it for $1. And I already have this. I actually bought this whole run, this whole storyline, as it came back. I can't believe it's been 20 years now. And what's funny is I got the first issue at a movie gallery back when you went and rented your DVDs slash VHS, whatever you had back in the day. And they had a stand with some comics beside it. Hello, Werewolf by Lunchtime. Good to see you. You make me feel like the show is international. Because I think it was Paolo that told me you're in Australia. So great to see you again. All right, so basically I cracked this up, but we got Batman 608, like I said, from 2002, which blows my mind. Of course, this is the first chapter of the Hush storyline. That was just like the thing there for a while. Everybody thought that it was Jason Todd coming back, which it should have been proper. And then I found these. Like I said, these were out of dollar bins. And this was floating around my house as a kid. Like, I did not buy this one. The stepdad actually bought this one. And the first issue, and maybe one other issue, was floating around, so I never actually read the entire series proper, right? But the stepdad was a big Kirby fan, which played off into Thor, and then in the 80s they gave Baldar his own miniseries there. And this was Walt Simonson writing, Sal Buscema drawing. And I believe these are Simonson covers. Sal Buscema did this thing where he had a certain style, and then around the 90s, I think, he completely sort of changed his style. It was on Peter Parker's Spider-Man Forever. So I ended up getting the whole miniseries of Baltar the Brave from 1985. I believe that's when this was. Yeah. And there's a lot of things going on in 1985. I was big into Crisis at the time. So a lot of my money towards comics was going towards Crisis, as the crossovers and everything. Now, this one is, I almost didn't get this because I thought this was a huge spine roll. I was like, how can I have all 4 issues and then turn around and have one that's just kind of crappy? I almost didn't buy it. But it turns out the book has been cut like that. This is an error issue. They actually, it got off track there where the spine is. It's pulled over and it's cut to where it didn't really affect the cover, which blows my mind. The characters are still lined up to be straight here. They're not, you figure if it shifted, the whole wraparound cover shifted there, it would mess them up. So, I got a flawed issue off the printer there. And Baldar the Brave, number 4 there. Yeah, it was number 1 and number 4 floating around the house. I remember flipping through those, and we never finished the story proper. Man, we got a lot of people here on a Saturday night. Like I said, we have John C. We have Werewolf by Lunchtime. Sunday morning in Perth, 9:24 a.m. Now, you said Sunday morning over there where you're at. I usually do a show on Sunday mornings called Rainy Sundays, and that's usually where I show hauls and talk comics. There won't be a show in the morning. Sequential Geek is here. Nice. It's finally letting you post in where I can see it. That's amazing. You usually have to look at my YouTube app to see my comments and analytics and stuff. I recently picked up that miniseries for $5. Love Simonson. He's a nice guy. I met him a couple of times. Jared Osborne, who was on the show last night, is actually friends with him. I was just about to open a beer. Go right ahead and open one for me. So I do not drink anywhere near as much as I used to. Might have a drink twice a year, not that much. Now, this was curious. I was curious about this. Plus, it is a curious issue, and I'm hoping there's maybe some editorials in here. But back in the day, as a kid, I loved Epic Illustrated. Epic Illustrated was Marvel's version of heavy metal, but it was more people who worked in comics and things like that. It was, of course, if you didn't like an issue, or you didn't like a story, just turn the pages or wait till the next issue. It was a whole, New Teams anthology series. David Sim was even in it. It ran for 34 issues. And this story, I remember seeing the ads for it, and I was a little confused because I could have sworn one of the Epic Illustrated I was reading as a kid. I have almost a full set downstairs. I think I'm missing like 3 or 4 issues out of the whole run. But this was supposed to be an Epic Illustrated, and it became a miniseries. And of course, it came out through the Epic line. And I do believe it was a few years later, Grain of Salt, because I'm going by memories. But this ended up being its own thing. And I remember seeing, like I said, the advertisements for it, but it was never on the newsstand. But 6 from Sirius. And it's Doug Moench with Paul Gulacy. And I'm telling you, Paul Gulacy, when he does sci-fi stuff, it's out of this world. So I'm really expecting some really cool art there. Probably a lot like this throughout the whole book. Beautiful stuff. And definitely of its era, man. This feels like this could have been published in heavy metal just by going by the covers. So I was glad to get those, and I might actually sit down after this and read these. We get on down here. All right. And then I double dipped with these. I always pick up these Vertigo Winter's Edge specials, or, what they had out, but they came out with their square bound, and take in that cover. It's a Mike Allred cover, and you'll see a lot of 90s characters in here. You see Spider, Jerusalem, Death, Sandman, Mystery Theater. I'm assuming that's Tim Hunter at the top there. Don't know who this chick is down here at the bottom. That's all right. But here's why I picked these up, man, because listen to this, to the creators on this, right? Neil Gaiman, and there's a guy named Jones, Warren Ellis, Robertson, Grant Morrison, Phil Jimenez, Kevin Nolan, Steve Gerber, Pat Milligan, Steve Siegel, Ed Brubaker, and Garth Ennis, Steve Dillon, Paul Pope, Mike Allred, right? So this was from 1999. And like I said, I found that for $1. I already have this. This could potentially be an upgrade, but I still kind of would whip out my Vertigos every now and then. Okay, so I'm going to save the good stuff for the last. I don't know if it's going to blow a lot of people away, because if you have me on Instagram, probably about an hour ago, I went ahead and posted the books and decided to do the live show while I was doing that. But I made 2 stops today. Like I said, I stopped at a flea market and I stopped at the comic book shop, and I ended up making a little bit of a deal for these books. So these he tried to charge me about $2 a piece, and he gave me a number. I opened up my wallet and I said, "This is how much I have in cash. Do you want it?" And he said, "Yeah." So I did leave a few things behind, right? But basically, what I'm doing, where I'm not buying a lot of new comics. I think last year I bought 27 comics that were current, new as they came out through my online store. And a few little Grendel omnibus this year and stuff. I have no idea how many new books I've gotten this year. So I made room. I did a purge a few years ago, and I went through and I was like, I'm never going to get rid of this. But I love Mike McCone art. And then some of these books ended up becoming keys, which kind of bothered me a little bit because I had them. And it's not a bad series. It actually got better as it went along. And then after Jeff Johns really left and they did 1 year later, I thought it dipped. So it had a pretty good year when Infinite Crisis was going on, right? But, I had these new, but it's the, what is this, Volume 3 of Teen Titans? Volume 3 or 4 of Teen Titans. But it's the Mike McCone art that I think is fantastic. And again, this is from 2003. I remember getting these in the mail every couple months with the online store. I've been using Gmart for 20 years. Gmart is a comic book store that if you pre-order your stuff, you get 35% off the pre-order stuff, no matter what it is. And then when it accumulates to $85 in value of what you bought, they'll ship it to you for free. So I would be getting these every 2 or 3 months back then. This is a key. And this blew my mind a little bit, but this is where Impulse becomes Kid Flash proper. And that really kind of bothered me at the time, and it still does. I don't think anybody considers Impulse, if they even talk about him anymore, as Kid Flash. It was all about legacy and growing up, of course. Jeff Johns was sort of doing his best Marv Wolfman, but still doing his own thing. But I thought that was a little bit of a mistake because basically Impulse, debuted in The Flash, Mark Waid, Mark Ringo, in the 90s, Flash number 92 or 94 or something. And he was so popular, he got his own series. And on that series, Mark Waid was writing it. And it had an artist like who became future superstars like Humberto Ramos, for you guys that remember Spider-Man Island or whatever. He got to leave his mark a little bit. I saw him bounce around Image working with Warren Ellis on DV8. And then I think Ethan Van Sciver came on. It might have been his first book at DC. I'm not sure. So for him to pick up the legacy and be Kid Flash, it kind of blew my mind because he already had a legacy as Impulse. I don't know. Is Impulse even around anymore? I don't know, man. That 52 killed a lot of stuff. And then we got number 6, of course, where they fight the Justice League, much like they did in the new Teen Titans. I think it was number 4, back when Marv Wolfman and George Perez got it running back in 1980. Number 7, like I said, the Mike McCone art in these are beautiful. They're fantastic. And this is the key. Because, of course, with the Teen Titans, where we had like the sidekicks being their own thing and the legacy and everything like that, they took Deathstroke and had her daughter, and she became the Ravager. I think she popped up on the last page of this. And then her, cameo appearance and then full, first appearance. You know how those comics are with their cameos and first appearance. It gets tricky. But, I thought she was I thought she looked pretty sharp when she came out. Took her brother's name, and I don't know what issue it is, but I remember reading the story where she's driving around with Deathstroke and she's gone completely insane, and she whips out her knife and she pokes her own eye out and says, "Now I'm just like you." And I was like, oh, they're going crazy. So anyway, it's probably like a $10 book. One of these are probably like a $10 book I got for $1. And then this is where the series actually took off for me. I double dipped on this one. I actually have the books. I got this volume Teen Titans out to kind of put them together sequentially. No excuse tonight. Let me slow down and look at this. Yeah, Mike McCone did some fantastic stuff on Fantastic Four. I got to sample some of that. I actually have a long box full of Fantastic Four. That's one of my favorite series of all time. Awesome. Comic Book Frog is here. How are you? I'm on Ingleteen's Action with Breen. We have Teen Titans comics for sale. Comic Book Frog pops in and he plugs a sale. So there you go, guys. Tales of the Teen Titans for 50 cents. Oh, how funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. Get that off of there. So anyway, but this is where the series took off because they went to the future, right? These are Titans of Tomorrow, and this is where they go to the future and they find things have gone pretty dark for a lot of these characters. So there's Raven grown up, another Aqua Girl's appeared, Impulse is now, I guess, Flash, Changeling is grown up. Dick Gray, or not Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, the Tim Drake Robin is in this, so he's Batman now. Superboy's grown up to be Superman, and Wonder Girl's grown up to be Wonder Woman, and they're it's a little bit dark. So I kind of dipped out there probably after 1 year later. I hung around issue 43, I think. But apparently in issue 50 and 51, which I thought I already had, but I do not. I'm not, maybe I gave them away like I did with most of the series. But issue 51, issue 50 was the anniversary issue, and they brought back the Titans of the Future to come back. The Titans also, right before this storyline where the Titans of the Future popped up, they crossed over with the Legion of Superheroes thanks to the Superboy connection. And there's a one-shot that I have over here. It was a Titans Legion one-shot that led up to that. And it's got a 2-page splash page in it where it's different versions of the Fatal Five, and there was 500 of them. And Ivan Rice kind of apologized for drawing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And he probably did like 490 and just said, apologize for not getting all 500. Everybody could not believe that he was actually trying to do 500 of them. But anyway, like I said, the book really picked up there in the late teens, I think, and then Infinite Crisis hit, and it really picked up. But anyway, they returned from the future. And I'll go ahead and tell you, man, I knew Superboy was coming back because he'd already met himself as Superman in the future. And then during Infinite Crisis, he ended up dying. And it turns out that was basically going on because of the Siegel-Schuster lawsuit that was going on at DC. Apparently they made it to court again or something. And they got rid of him because of the rights. I think they were afraid what was going to happen in court. And then they found out that Superboy is a derivative of Superman, not Superman. And he came back. Okay. That's how I remember it going down, right? And like I said, I knew he was coming back because we'd already seen him in the future here. And then here's issue 54 with the conclusion of this story where they fight themselves in the future. Oh, nice. Okay, so I had to get this one because, I don't know, maybe last year, some more of the last 2 years, I picked up some of these Cole issues from Marvel in the 80s. And the covers were beautiful, and I got number 9, which was a Barry Windsor Smith cover. And then as I was looking, cataloging these and looking at the how many issues was the series and things like that, I saw that number 10 was the exact same cover, but they replaced Cole's head with a snake. So number 9 is the exact same cover, except it had Cole's head as a human, and this one is a snake. So now I'm able to put them side by side. And that is a gorgeous Barry Windsor Smith cover. Look at that. That is just fantastic stuff, man. Oh, tell you what, the Bronze Age, the 70s is my favorite era of comics. But, man, I love those 80s covers and books and stories and stuff, right? So what I'm also doing is I'm picking up George Perez issues. George Perez for you guys. That okay, there we go. Anyway, but I'm picking up these George Perez issues and stuff. I have a ton down there, and I've actually set aside as a short box to just, as I'm going through my collection, I'm just sticking anything that's George Perez in there, right? There's runs I won't bust up. Don't get me wrong. I mean, all the Teen Titans. I have enough Teen Titans where I have a long box. And then, if he's done everything. So we're talking about things that are kind of loose out there where he came in and did 4 or 5 issues here, or where he just did this something like where he just came in and did 1 issue. But I'm very, anything by Jeff Jones, I think it's his name, anything that is written by him now, I'm very uncomfortable reading. If you go back and see what he was charged and went to jail for, it's kind of weird for him to be writing a book about a kid. Let's put it that way, right? But this is Prime, and this is a George Perez issue. He came in and did the art in it. He hit the Ultraverse there for a little bit. It was kind of fun watching him in the 90s because he was playing around. He was doing iBots over here, popping up in the Ultraverse over here, doing a little here, doing little pinups for image and stuff. it was kind of cool to see him doing that. So yeah, this is just for me, just to get the George Perez art. All right, nice. Warren Ellis, as it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny to realize that Warren Ellis really did work himself up to being one of those writers for a while, one of those big names and stuff. I mean, but Doom 2099 and then Excalibur and then some other things that he's doing. I always felt like he was like a superstar, but apparently it was him working his way up and getting merit and stuff. And funnily enough, I think his masterpiece was what he did with coming in and taking over Stormwatch, having the doing a Aliens Wild, was it the Alien, a one shot Aliens, Ridley Scott's Aliens, and a Wildcat one shot where he killed off a lot of the original Stormwatch team, and so he could replace them with his characters and building up to the Authority, and then having Planetary. I think his best stuff was away from Marvel and DC. But anyway, I loved Excalibur, probably the first 28 issues. And then Alan Davis came back around the 42nd issue. He wrote and drew it with Alan Moore. Wrote and drew it himself after that. But when the book came out, he was the artist on it with Chris Claremont. And that was a fantastic run. And then Warren Ellis came on. So I'm piecing together the Warren Ellis run. And I have a ton of them. But this is the 100th issue of Excalibur by Warren Ellis. And I got a lot to say. I mean, this is 1996, and you can tell the art is highly influenced by what was going on at Image and stuff there for a few years. This is piecemeal here, right? But one of my favorite series, and it always goes back and forth in my head, is Commandy my favorite series of all time, or is it James Robinson's Starman, or is it Alan Moore's Swamp Thing? I don't know. Or it's, plays around. But anything with James Robinson, I'm kind of picking back up to get it. Right before the 52 hit, he took over the Justice League. And I think I can show you that in a minute, right? And I knew something was coming because of what they were letting James Robinson do. He filled it full of different characters. I mean, he put Congo-Rilla in the Justice League. He had Michael, the Blue Star Man, in there. He had Dick Grayson in Wonder Girl in there, and Supergirl, and some other characters and stuff. And I'm like, something's happening, because when I was a kid in 1983, the Flash killed Professor Zoom, and they had him actually getting charged with murder. And he ran off with the gorillas in Gorilla City, I think, and he ended up getting plastic surgery where he didn't look like himself. And he revealed it. When he took that mask off in court, they were like, "That's not Barry Allen." And they were doing some wild stuff. Well, that's because they knew Crisis was coming. They knew the Flash was going to die. They knew they were going to reboot their universe, and they knew it didn't matter. So letting James Robinson take over the Justice League and do his thing on it, I was like, this has the same feel. And I think this crosses over with his run on Justice League, the Superman Batman series, annual number 5. I've never seen this, but I'm pretty sure there's the Reign of Doomsday means something. And I think I saw, and there's his Justice League. I think some of his Justice League characters were on the cover or on the inside when I flipped through it. So, James Robinson may tie in with that. Now, something I got the entire storyline in floppies, and I go back and forth with like, I'll just get rid of this, or maybe I won't, because maybe I will get rid of this, right? And I've come up to the point where I had it right there to put on eBay, then I stick it back in the box. And now I find myself today getting a decent copy of the one floppy that was kind of beat up, right? And I don't know what I don't think I'll recommend this story to people, but there's something that I just can't get rid of it, right? I can't do it. I can't bring myself to get rid of it, right? But it even had a one shot, and it ran through the Superman books. But everybody thought the villain was going to be Mr. Mxyzptlk, and that's sort of right. But it was the Emperor Joker storyline that ran through the Superman books. There's even an Emperor Joker one shot, I think, that goes with the storyline. And I have all of them, so and now I'm finding myself doing an upgrade on one of the issues. I have a feeling I'm never going to get rid of it. It's an all right story. I think think it got. I think they did I think they kind of touched on this story in the Brave and Bold cartoon. To tell you the truth, I'm gonna have to pull that up on HBO Max and see if I remember it right. So yeah, just one of those fun Superman stories. All right, what do we got here? All right, what we got here? Werewolf by Lunchtime. Did you ever read Fell? I love Ben Temple-Smith's art in that series. I don't think I have read that one. I'll look it up. Uh, Werewolf by Lunchtime. You know that Fell book was a big deal because Ellis wanted to show it was possible to offer cheap comics at $2. Interesting. Awesome. Okay. So these are the last two issues of, like, who knows what this is? Volume 4, 5, 6 of the Justice League. And I think we're around 2011. And these are the last two Justice League of America books to come out before they went DC 52 and rebooted everything, right? And apparently he went out with a bang because he did this Rise of Eclipso story. James Robinson did. And now I have, and number 60. Now with these two issues, I think I have most of this storyline in probably 99% of what James Robinson did. He did a Cry for Justice miniseries that led into him doing the Justice League. That's what happened. I think Prometheus was the main villain, and they took Roy Harper, and he lost an arm. But anyway, this is number 60, the last issue. And then the very next month, we got the new 52 going on. So I'm very excited to sit down and read this. James Robinson is a very capable writer. So kind of felt like he was writing for himself on this, right? He was having some fun with it. Yep. Yeah, McGinnis. Yep. I see what y'all are talking about. Okay. And then here we are again with George Perez. But in the time of everybody in the 90s coming up with their own creator-owned stuff and series, because Image showed what can be done and what was possible, and they were getting scratched and becoming millionaires, and Todd McFarlane was yelling at everybody to start putting out books again and work. We got to keep this going because everybody was making the money, and Mark Silvestre and his crew were hanging out at Playboy Mansion, and they were like superstars. But George Perez put out something where it was through something that didn't last very long, Heavy Hitters, through the Epic line at Marvel. And they turned around and he came up with Sax and Violins. As you can tell, it's a play on words and stuff, right? And I remember flipping through this, but there was so much stuff going on at the time in comics when you made it to a comic book shop and stuff. There was so much stuff going on that you really had to pick and choose what you wanted to get. There was just a glut of comics coming out, and Valiant was hot, and Image was everybody. I knew people who were buying every comic that was coming out in Image, and we all know what happened with those books. I actually know another person who used those boxes of Image comics that couldn't sell, and they used them to insulate their greenhouse. Yeah. But anyways, George Perez threw his out there and did his own line of comics. Now, what's very interesting about the way he draws Sax is that George Perez would often frequent fetish conventions. Yeah, I had him on. Excuse me, I had him on Facebook, and it was nothing for him to be in his Hawaiian shirt, sitting there with four women on each side, all in dressed like that and stuff, right? So maybe that's why he was invited to him, because of this book and stuff, right? But apparently it was like the worst kept secret that he did, the big sweetheart, but he went to those fetish conventions, and who knows, what he did behind closed doors, good for him, if he did anything. All right. So now we're at the point here where I'm going to show you, like I said, if you're not into Westerns or Jonah Hex, this may not blow you away, but I was happy to find these, and there's some other little gems in there, right? So these are 24 books, I believe, and I got them for $20. I had a 20 on me, right? And I was like, well, you take 20 for these because they were $1 a piece. And this is a flea market. And I went through these, and I had a big stack, and then I lowered it down. There's one book I left behind, which was the first appearance of Scalp Hunter, but I did not know it. And I'm thinking I put the book back because it was beat up, right? I don't know how this person at this flea market got these books, but she could care less about the comics because I'm going to, there's somebody going to watch and figure out where it is, and I don't want somebody to find my honeypot, right? Anyway, so I was going through these, and I just wanted to read some Jonah Hex. A couple months ago, I finally got uh, the last Jonah Hex story, The Death of Jonah Hex, and I read it, and I'm like, that was freaking fantastic. I'm not a big Western fan. If it's good, it's good, right? I liked Silverado when it came out. I was into Young Guns when it came out. I go all the way back to Red Sun. I like some of the Eastwood movies, but not all of them, you know. So just not a Western guy. Even though I have a large love for the Lone Ranger and stuff, right? So you know, it's very compartmentalized, right? I can't even tell you why I like some of this stuff, and some of the Westerns just don't do anything for me. I can't help it, right? But Jonah Hex did. It was just a fantastic story here. So this is actually worth $110, and in the shape it's in, I would say 85. Okay, just to take it down, right? 83 cents a piece is what these come to, and they're in Mylar. And it's really sad when I find books in Mylar at a flea market that I feel like somebody passed away and this was their collection. But anyway, for 83 cents, an early issue of Weird Western Tales number 14. I think this was All Star Western before issue 12, I think. Like I said, I'm not well versed on the Western books and stuff, right? But I couldn't believe this. And then the other books were all like $85, $85, and they dropped to $50. So I think there might be one or two $85 books, and the rest are 50. And I mean, this is actually a beautiful copy, but there's a little color break right there. So there you go. But yeah, 83 cents. I just wanted some Jonah Hex stories, and I get home and I find this out. These are just fantastic. The art on these are fantastic on the covers, showing them. This is where I think they dropped to $50 a piece. So whatever's going on with the Weird Western Tales and the Jonah Hex love, these books are pricey, which really surprised me. Like I said, they're a beautiful Mylar. I love this cover. Like I said, to actually have these books in your hand, you would really be able to appreciate the art and the cross hatching better and everything. Even more, our ambush. And this is what's interesting. This is what's called an ambush cover. These were really big on war comics, but usually it was our poor heroes about to be ambushed. But we got old Jonah Hex outnumbered, but he's about to ambush them stuff, right? Nick Cardy was really good with those. Nick Cardy and Joe Kubert were fantastic with those covers. Bright yellow cover there to stand out on the spinner racks. Love this cover. Tells a story and it's well placed. The characters are well placed. The arrangement is fantastic. Just good stuff, man. So I can't. I'm going to break into these and read them. I don't care that they're worth stuff, right? But yeah, that's interesting. The noose. Draw there, partner. It's high noon. And then this is apparently where I feel like, I don't know, it's just kind of a bland cover after looking at the other ones. Him fighting a bear. And that bear is the most oddly shaped bear I've ever seen. And it's brown, so I guess it's supposed to be a Kodiak. As you can tell by my accent, I'm in the mountains, and it's nothing to see a black bear from time to time, and they do run from you if you make enough noise and don't get between their cubs. But the Kodiaks and stuff will come after you, from what I hear. Now, this book, I just looked up how much it is, and I cannot remember, but it's 3 digits. Okay, it's in the $100 range, we'll say, right? Which surprised me also, because I have a few of these downstairs. So now maybe I need to go dig them out and see if they're worth anything. But I got a great all-star comic with the Super Squad. Some Wally Wood, Paul Levitz, Keith Giffen, and Wally Wood. Fantastic stuff to keep it going. I love anything that's tied to World War II. I loved Earth 2 stories when I could get a hold of them through Justice League and World's Finest and backup stories and stuff. So, and then I'm piecing this together, and I think I'm only needing like maybe 5 issues, and I will finally have a complete run of this, because this was one of the comics series that I read as a kid that my stepdad would get. And I've built up my own collection over the years, picking up some here, some there. If you've watched the channel for years, you've watched it grow with me, right? But it's the Invaders, and I have a few issues that I show that were the originals that my stepdad had, and they don't have covers anymore because we read them. But again, I ran across issue 36 for 80s, and this is a beautiful copy. Beautiful copy. It's not just the Mylar making it look beautiful, but this is issue 36. They also had a copy of issue 41. It already had 41. So if I go back there and it's still there, I want to pick it up again. But the last issue was issue 41 because it dawned on me as I was driving back. By the time they got to the last issue, the print run was pretty low. So you never know. And I know a couple people who have bought the omnibus of the Invaders and they love it. Now this one is beat up, but I could not pass it up, right? But Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, number 15, and it is beat up. I'll tell you what. But yeah, I had when I was a kid, I thought Luke Cage was the stuff there for a little bit. The way the artist would draw him standing and things like that, he just looked. To me, he looked like he could have existed. You know what I mean? You know. And this is some great bronze. These are 50-year-old books now. So go figure. But anyway, some of these, right? But I had to pick these up. These are beat up, but 83 cents. And we're talking about low grade is better than no grade and not having them at all. Oh, hold on. Oh, thank you. Okay, lovely covers. Thank you. Doing some unboxing while watching the show. Good times. I hear you. And then we have Werewolf by Lunchtime. I'm not a fan of those Eastwood Westerns. Too much standing around and posturing, kind of boring. Yeah, that's what I mean. They're hit and miss for me, you know. But anyway, a Marvel Team Up number 2, separated from the staple there at the end, a little beat up. But I think this came out in 1972 or 73. So we're talking about if it's not 50 years yet, we're just going to have to wait a month, okay, before we're doing this. So that was fantastic. Number 5. Spider-Man in the Vision. And the thing about this is that I think a lot of people forget Spider-Man and Human Torch had like this frenemies relationship, right? They would post gags on each other. They're actually pretty good friends. When Spider-Man got his Spider-Mobile, his dune buggy, that would actually climb walls, drive up walls and stuff like that. I think it was the Human Torch who was into hot rods and racing and things like that who actually fixed that car up for him. So anytime Spider-Man and the Human Torch teamed up back in the day, people who were collecting comics at the time were like, oh boy, here we go. This is going to be good. It was like you know. And then what did my generation have? Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. For you guys that don't know, I hate Booster Gold. And I got a video from like 2014 that for 3 years people begged for me to explain why I hated Booster Gold. And ended up being like a 20-minute rant, you know. Yeah, why I hate Booster Gold. That's what it's called for you new guys. Here's number 6, Spider-Man and the Thing. Now, this is interesting with this team up because through my perception, Spider-Man is like the figurehead. This is their Superman. Spider-Man is Marvel's figurehead hero, you know, or at least he used to be. I know they keep pushing Captain Marvel and all these failures of books and stuff like that. But to me, the ultimate Marvel character, everything that Marvel was trying to be and represent was the Thing for me. So Spider-Man and the Thing appearing together, this makes me shake my head when I look at the dynamics and stuff of it like that. Spider-Man is the popular figurehead character, but the Thing is everything that they're talking about Marvel should be, you know, in my mind. I love how Storm put the kick me on Spider-Man's back. Yeah. During the 80s, it was during the 80s when he did that. I kind of remember it. Yeah. Number 10 is Human Torch and Spider-Man again. I'm telling you, back in the day, for people who grew up with these comics of this era, you know, Spider-Man and Human Torch meeting up was a big deal, you know. I wonder when that actually faded away. Probably the 80s is when it faded away. Number 13, this has one of my now I flipped through this one and I went back in time. This is one of the comics that I read as a kid that was the Stepdad's. but this is number 13. Of course, I read it in the late 70s, and I'm a huge Great Gargoyle fan. Just from where I was a kid reading this, the Great Gargoyle would touch people and they would turn to stone. That's what made him dangerous. And but he looked like in my mind he looked like I don't want to say Vincent Price, but anyway, there was an actor or something like that with that mustache and that hair that he reminded me of, and he was just gray. On top of the gray, he had a gray mask, and everything was granite. But I actually have a friend, Fred Himbeck, artist trading card that he puts up for auction on his eBay site, on his eBay store. I have I have the Gray Gargoyle figure, and I have the Gray Gargoyle trading card of it. But at the time when I was growing up, the Great Gargoyle popped up everywhere. He was in the Avengers. He was fighting Thor. I think he was on a ship in space or something like that, like an actual looked like a boat, that kind of ship in space and stuff. I remember I still have these downstairs and stuff, right? But there for a while, man, the Great Gargoyle was everywhere. And then there was a time in the 80s where the Iron Man book that had Jackson Geiss, Butch Geiss art in it. I'm trying to think who was, it's right on the tip of my tongue who was writing those stories. Oh my God, Bob Layton. But anyway, they brought the Great Gargoyle back, and they had Spider-Man and Iron Man going after him and stuff, right? So yeah, I like some of those villains. This is in Mylar, but there's no backing board, but it's a little beat up cop. No, this is actually in good shape. This is pretty excellent shape. Spider-Man and the Hulk, number 54. I tell you what, man, that was my favorite toy as a kid. Was that Evil Knievel wind up motorcycle? I would get my lunchbox and notebooks and stuff, and make ramps and stuff. Continuing with when Johnny Storm put the "Kick Me" sign on Spider-Man's back. Peter lost his suit and he had the paper bag on his head. Yeah, wearing an older Fantastic Four suit, and Storm put that on his back. Yep. I remember a video game where you could actually get the skin. You could have your version of Spider-Man wearing that suit, the Fantastic Four suit with the bag. Yeah. All right, let's just get through these, man. Number 51. I have no big stories about that, but it's Spider-Man and Iron Man. I'm a sucker for the villains, right? I'm a sucker for the villain. I don't think, in my opinion, Doctor Doom has been done right since Marvel Superheroes Secret War back in '84. I know John Byrne did some great stuff with him in Fantastic Four, but when he brought in Kristoff and the Doctor Doom the second and the little psychotic kid and things like that, I was just sort of like, oh, we're going off the rails here with Doom. And I'll never forget my stepdad doing this thing where I had the Kiss Super Special that he had bought at a 7-Eleven in Johnson City, Tennessee, and reading that stuff. And I said something about Doctor Doom being in it, and he clearly stated that Doctor Doom was like the badass of the Marvel Universe, that if he had landed in New York, even Spider-Man would go, oh shit. The stepdad even had a coffee mug of Doctor Doom and a little shrine of Doctor Doom stuff before it was fashionable to collect things like that and stuff, right? So, yeah, I hated that I was a Doctor Doom fan, and he was also. It really bothered me, so I never admitted it. Now, I got this one, Nighthawk, and for a lot of people that don't realize this, but Nighthawk was part of the Squadron Sinister, which was an evil version of Squadron Supreme, and Squadron Supreme is Marvel's version of Justice League. And this is actually Batman running around, is what it is. There's also Speed Demon, who's actually a villain. He was actually like that version of the Flash. So he might have been killed by now. I don't know, but it just blew my mind. There's DC characters running around the Marvel universe, and a lot of people were talking about it or taking advantage of it, in my opinion, right? But there's also a Clark Kent and a Lois Lane in the Marvel universe, which is also funny, right? But anyway, but why did I get this? Because I hate hippies. I know people are hippies. I get along with them just fine, but those aren't the hippies I'm talking about. But anyway, they returned to the 60s, and I think this is from 1980. but I decided to flip through it anyway, and it has a backup story with art by Steve Ditko. So this is, I want to put a little label on this. Where this label is, I'm going to put Steve Ditko story. That's the only reason I got that. What we got here? Oh, for real. Around the same time as one of my favorite runs, the Stern Washima Avengers. Look at those hippies. They're not so friendly there. I love the Avengers at the time, geek. I have a soft spot for the West Coast Avengers as well. Lois and Clark in Simonson's Thor. Yep. What we were talking about that last night on the show, and I have a Marvel team up where it's Spider-Man and Red Sonja, where they're in that book also. I actually used to know. I used to know where every appearance was because I had a few of them, and then there was an article that came out through CPR, Comic Book Resources, CBR, and they did a Legends article, like is it a myth or a legend? Is it real or whatever? And I think they listed quite a few of the appearances. Getting people showing some love for West Coast Avengers. Yep, I absolutely hate it. I absolutely hated how they did the Moon Knight in West Coast Avengers. I mean, they went full Batman with them. Now, this was really cool, and this is one of those books I thought I had, and it blows my mind that's sort of a key. And I think it got a little bit hot when the New Mutants movie was coming out. Okay, so if this is a $10 book, I'd be surprised now. I'd say between 10 and 25, but I don't know how the market works. I don't really track it that much, right? But this has $17 on it. So whoever had this was selling it for $17. And I just saw that here, but I got it for 83 cents. But it's Fantastic Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Marvel Team Up, 100, first appearance of Karma from the New Mutants with a Frank Miller cover. There we go figure, right? So yeah, there it is. And it's got like a little dent right there on it. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know if I want to read that or not. Why did I get this one? I think I think this has Mr. Fear. There it is. There for a while, there was obscure villains I liked. I was reading a lot of official handbook of the Marvel Universe as a kid, and I would see like these Spider Woman villains that you never saw anywhere else, and Full Killer, and they turned out to be, a lot of them turned out to be Steve Gerber characters. What was it? Elf with a gun. There's these minor little characters that I thought were freaking cool or had a really cool look, and they wouldn't pop up. And I think Mr. Fear was one. And I'm not going to say that for sure because I need to see what he looks like. But I think in my mind he looked like Skeletor a little bit. I don't know, or Dr. Destiny from the Justice League or something like that. But anyway, I'm pretty sure he had a skull mask or something. But apparently this was considered a key because it's actually written down as in some app or something. It says fourth appearance of Mr. Fear. So we're really getting into the spec there, right? So, yeah, but go through Spider-Woman's Rogues Gallery. There was like somebody named the Needle. I was like, that's kind of silly, but that's kind of cool. It would be really creepy to run up across somebody that looks so ridiculous and be like, they're nuts, man, And then I got this one because this is the early days of Spider-Man in that symbiote costume, right? I would say we were probably 2 or 3 months in, or maybe a month in, between 1 and 3 months in. I'm going by memory here of Spider-Man being in the symbiote costume, where he was waking up tired and didn't understand because the suit was taking him out at night when he was sleeping. And got some posters too, but that's going to be too hard to unwrap and stuff like that, right? Well, I wanted to get the video out. There'll be no rainy Sunday morning show tomorrow, so hopefully some people will have this to watch I actually have a few people. This is their Sunday routine. They have me playing in the background, or they drank their coffee to that show or something. It's kind of nice to know. But anyway, but yeah, I got to get this stuff put up, read a few things. And everybody be excellent to each other. Thanks for everybody that's coming in. So let's look at these and the last comments here, and we'll call it a night, man. New Mutants, X-Men, and Amazing Spider-Man were my favorite books from that time. Yep, I was a little contrary. I stayed away from the X-Men for a long time, but the Asgardian Wars brought me in. Vision of Scarlet Witch, Werewolf by Lunchtime. There was always several X books, so yeah, another Avengers book was possible at the time. I don't think people remember how the mutants and the X-Men took over everything. There's a comedy book, is the best way to put it. I don't want to call it a funny book, but it was for laughs. Don't get me wrong, a little bit of satire and for laughs. But they actually had a story around the fall of the mutants time where the mutants, and they had Kyle Baker drawing it. But they were talking about, feel like the other shoe was the big enemy was coming after him and all this stuff like that. And then when you found out what it was the Avengers and stuff and all the other heroes who weren't mutants coming at him, saying that we're here too, so it was actually like a little satire there of how popular mutants had been, and all the other heroes were the big enemy coming after them. So, um, Pat Mills from 2000 AD started Toxic, was co-founder, and it was weekly, but they went out of Viz after 31 issues in 91. And you can check out the comments if you're watching this on the rerun to see what they're talking about. But yeah, Pat Mills has passed away, and that was very sad. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me a little bit here on a Saturday. I'm actually going to get some food. I'm going to do a little reading. I'm going to bed. So everybody have a great weekend and be excellent to each other.